Thanks for joining us for a new episode of the Holistic Selling Podcast. I'm pleased to welcome Rich Tarity to the show today. Rich is a serial entrepreneur, business advisor, speaker, and best-selling author with more than 27 years of experience helping organizations create value, align stakeholders, and accelerate decision-making. As founder and CEO of truCX, Rich helps companies improve customer experience, discovery, and business transformation through data-driven insights and organizational alignment. Rich is also the author of the best-selling book, The Intelligence Within, which explores how organizations can make smarter decisions and execute faster in complex environments. Throughout his career, he has founded, scaled, and exited multiple businesses while advising hundreds of executives on leadership, customer experience, AI, and digital transformation. Known for his value-centric approach, Rich is a sought-after thought leader on organizational intelligence, strategic discovery, and business growth. So you can see why I'm very excited to have a conversation with Rich on the podcast today. Rich, welcome. What would you like to add to my introduction here?
Thanks, Bernard. I appreciate you having me. This is a topic that's so near and dear to my heart. Holistic selling is a fantastic title for exactly where we're at in this industry. It hits a nerve in so many good ways. So Rich Tarity, founder of truCX. I also have an vested interest in a few other businesses, from consulting to food delivery and things like that. Serial entrepreneur, been doing this since I was 26 years old, still having an absolute blast doing it, trying to continue to reinvent myself, reinvent process, reinvent the way companies go through transformation. I've sat through the Y2K boom, and now here we are in this AI revolution boom. The thing that's so cool about being in this industry, specifically in the technology side, is that it is always, always changing.
That is very true. And Rich, you wrote about the critical need for organizational alignment, customer-centric decision-making, breaking down silos, and creating a shared truth that guides everyone in the company to execute with greater confidence and speed. These themes are similar to what guided me to create the Holistic Selling Operating System to empower your frontline team members to deliver extraordinary experiences and outcomes to your customers and prospects at every touch point. So it is really great to have an opportunity to compare our perspectives and to listen to your insights today. So my first question to you is about your best-selling book, The Intelligence Within. What motivated you to write this book?
After 25 years of helping organizations just improve across customer experience and technology adoption and transformation as well, I noticed a pattern as a consultant. Companies kept looking outside themselves for the answers by hiring consultants, by doing their research and things like that. And while that is all important and there's really good applicability to all of those avenues, what they weren't doing enough of is really tapping into that intelligence within their organization. It's their people. It's the tribal knowledge that exists inside that organization. Your people know where your customers are experiencing friction. The employees know where they're experiencing issues and friction, tools that are outdated, where they're working harder than they should because they lack automation. There's so much intelligence inside a business that my notion was, rather than engage with me or a consulting firm or doing your research, first engage inside. Really try to understand what's going on inside the DNA of the firm. The book is all about unlocking the collective intelligence of employees, teams, customers, stakeholders to make better decisions and get better outcomes. And we live in a world overwhelmed with data, but we're starving for clarity and alignment inside. We're all moving so fast that we lack that clarity and alignment. I wanted to challenge the traditional approaches to doing discovery and consulting and decision making because it's a single point in time. There's no way to create continuous improvement. It's interesting for the larger mid-sized companies and enterprise customers, it could take up to a year for them to go through a traditional method for discovery. And I've put people through that because it's the best we had. It's pure inertia and effort. And the great thing about that is that you learn a lot about their DNA and their culture. And then you start digging deeper into that area so that you can really drive the pain points out. That's what we're trying to do, is identify pain points faster. And so we would always get feedback on our process, and they would say, "You guys are not lazy consultants. You're really doing a great job. The problem is as good as you are, it's still taking us too long. And if we just went through this process after a year, the technology's already leapfrogged maybe 3 or 4 times in the cycles of R&D and development. So now we got to go back through a process of, here's all this other stuff that's available." And so to continually improve, you have to be constantly discovering and constantly evaluating where you're at against any category, any topic. And so for us, it was all about the platform becomes the expert. It guides people and teams through a process, topic by topic. So you don't need to be an expert in any area as IT or as an operations lead or an executive. You don't have to be well versed in AI and use cases just yet. You're going to learn about it like your people are going to learn. You can all go through the same process and track at the same time. A lot of people stall and a lot of companies get stuck because they don't know where to start. It was much easier and more linear back in the early 2000s and the 90s when making any type of technology decisions, because IT could really get their arms around it and work with the business. But now there's so many competing priorities inside the business. The CX team and the support team, yet alone the finance team, and then you've got HR and IT and operational folks layering into this. It's very challenging. And so our platform allows people to go deep and wide across anything that's important, where they have projects where they need to generate discovery and they need to generate requirements and get it done in a very fast manner. So the one takeaway I would say specifically around the book is the intelligence within is about helping organizations to stop guessing and start listening to the intelligence they already process.
Oh, very well said. And I love the words starving for clarity and alignment. One of the key themes of the book is also that it's clearly very important to have cross-functional agreement on priorities and success criteria. And with that cross-functional alignment, organizations can align, decide, and execute faster. And in so doing, they can gain a significant competitive advantage. Could you give me a couple of examples of situations where you see that cross-functional alignment work best to agree on common purpose, common priorities to drive that competitive advantage?
Yeah. So if you think about misalignment, it's generally the number one culprit out there. A lot of times I think about the whole idea of this paradox of choices. I talk about that in the book. When you go out to, say, a diner and you get a 7-page menu, the waitress or waiter might come over 5 or 6 times and you're still looking at each other like, I don't know what I want. There's just so many options. And you're debating and debating and debating. But if you go to a place where it's a very fixed menu, it's one page, and there's only 3 or 5 things in each category, you very quickly can make up your mind. And so, what organizations really need to do, in my opinion, to get unstuck and create alignment and clarity is simplify the process. We've fixed that with the platform. It's not going to slow you down to have 30, 40, 50 people go through the process. You're going to speed it up. And I know that that was something to be concerned about. Traditional discovery, that is something to be concerned about. Adding too many people, it's going to get too complex. I understand that and I've seen it and I've been a part of it. But with a platform and a time boxed approach, you can create alignment fast. It's no longer about the number of people. You can get as many people involved in the organization as you need to. And in my opinion, the more you get involved, the better off you are at really getting the outcomes that the business really requires to move forward and face all the challenges and remove themselves from the status quo. The one thing that's the silent killer here is making no decision. If you're making no decision these days and staying safe in the status quo bucket, you're headed for a disaster. You'll probably be fired at some point, unless the culture's just made up of we're going to be laggards on the traditional adoption scale, because everything's moving so fast. I talk to consulting firms all day long. They even feel overwhelmed with the amount of data that's coming out, the amount of use cases that are being driven right now. And so sometimes you have to make it simple, stupid, and bring it back to a real easy place to digest. And don't worry about all of the noise and all of the friction, and just focus on yourself and what you need in order to really move forward as a group, as a company, and an organization.
That's very well said. And you're right. Process simplification really has a lot to do in creating clarity and alignment. So, what are the top three pieces of advice that you would have for a CEO of a company? Where would that CEO start in creating clarity, alignment, and process simplification?
I think the first thing is to realize that you don't have to do it all. Really good organizations that innovate on an ongoing basis, they hire really, really well. So why would you not want to include people along the way and value their feedback and value their input, value their opinions? You get to consensus, which is what a CEO and a CFO love anytime they have to approve any type of big project or budget. They want to know that there's consensus in the organization, that this is what people need. The other thing that happens as you get people involved in the process is they start to believe in the change. They start to see the opportunity to transform. They get behind the project instead of creating friction around it or trying to block it. That's the thing. If I'm a CI, I'm getting everyone inside my organization that has a really good opinion and has been in that organization, and I want to make sure that I get them through a process where I can tap in to the internal knowledge base that they have and tap into that tribal knowledge. I need to bring that forward so that I can make the best decision and make the best representation for us as a group. It's not about me anymore making a decision. It's not my actual decision. In fact, what we're seeing is when people still make decisions in silos or in vacuum, they end up really shooting themselves in the foot because then they dump the decision of whatever it is they decided onto the organization. And the organization sometimes takes a while to catch up to it, if they ever do. And so by including people, you really do take away all of the obstacles. And I think as CIO, it doesn't matter what level of decision maker you are, you should be really absolutely bringing in your top thinkers, your top doers, the people that really move the needle for you. And I would also say get a subset of some of the folks even further downstream inside, say, a contact center. Get some of your agents that have been there for a few years that really understand. Get them in as part of the process so they can represent the broader audience of the other folks that are there. Encourage them because of their tenure to get involved in the process. I just see such great outcomes when we do that. And it was just the whole philosophy around the intelligence within was just we know we're putting people through this process now. We're getting better results than we ever have, faster than we ever have by getting them to go through a process that's digital in nature, that's educational in nature versus manual in nature in a single point in time.
Yes, and maybe a contentious point that I'd like to make is when an executive leadership team turns to an outside consultant to look for insights and make decisions, very often you feel as an executive in a company that your point of view is not valued, that the ELT trusts an outside consultant more than it trusts its own executives and people within the firm. Have you seen situations like this where actually hiring outside help, outside consultants can actually create conflicts within the organization, basically get those executives and team members to disengage from the process?
Absolutely. And what problem is truCX solving? Most organizations are making major CX, AI, technology decisions these days based on assumptions, politics, loudest voices, a handful of stakeholders that have deep opinions. Traditional discovery, as we know, is slow. It can be very expensive and often incomplete. So, to bring it back to a story based on your point, we went into a utility company that has 140-ish contact center agents, is on a traditional platform for most of their WFM and call center and phone systems and using an older instance of Oracle. And they had some big outages last year in May of 2025. So it really brought them to their knees in a lot of ways. And so they looked at their existing consulting partner, which they felt really didn't have the skills to take the company through the right type of discovery. They had a good relationship there. They had a good partnership. They were really good at keeping the lights on and making changes to the existing environment, but maybe weren't going to be able to necessarily get them over the hump in a more modern platform way and modern thinking. So I went head to head with Deloitte. First time we had faced one of the big consulting companies. Deloitte came in, pitched on a $300,000 project. It was going to be two people. It was going to take over 8 months. And the customer said they're never going to be able to get it down to the level of requirements that they're able to get on truCX. So we won the process. It was maybe 36,000 for them to go through it over the course of a year. And so it was literally like 90% less to go through a process that took them 4 weeks to drive all the requirements versus going to a big managed consultant where they wouldn't have gotten that level of detail. So that is just, again, walking testimonial of a client, really good people, got everything they wanted to get out of that project, had everything buttoned up for procurement and ready to go for the RFP process. Another problem we're solving is truCX is giving organizations just a faster, more collaborative way to uncover requirements and real priorities because it's driving all of the improvement opportunities out of what's coming from the folks inside the business. This isn't an observation from a third party. This isn't coming from customers. This isn't a voice of customer, although you can send this out to customers. We have a couple of consultants that have sent this out to external facing folks to go through the process to learn more about how they feel about the business and the benefits they're getting from the business. How easy are they to do business with? So we're getting things done in days and weeks, not months, not years. It's a massive value proposition to people because it's a time value. The other thing is we're helping companies align leaders, employees, customers, and partners around what matters most. All of these results are their opinions, their scoring, and their feedback. It's all about them. It's not about me. It's not about a consulting firm. It's all about them. So when you get them talking about themselves, that's their favorite subject, a lot of things start to really unveil. So our platform just turns discovery into this repeatable data-driven process. truCX helping organizations discover what truly need before they invest millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars inside projects.
So you brought truCX on the podcast a couple of times. What is the problem that when you started truCX, you targeted to solve for your customers?
I had personally worked a Fortune 500 account, and it took me 9 months to coordinate meetings and schedule one on ones and literally shadow people. And I had a series of Word docs and recordings, audio recordings, but it took 9 months. And there was a lot of political shakeup right about the 9 month period. And some of my decision makers and EVP levels that held the decision were all of a sudden all out of the business and migrating to another business. They all left. And then they started taking some of their people with them. And I was left at the end of the 9 month mark with nothing but a whole bunch of archives that were a single point in time in the past 9 months from a bunch of folks that were no longer there. So how valid was their opinion really to any new level of executive coming in? How valid is anything that I've gathered over the last 9 months? And I said to myself, we have to be better at doing the discovery part. We have to get away from such a manual effort. There has to be a way to time box this and make it so fast and so good that they get more than they could get from a 9 month traditional consulting effort. So that's when I decided I'm going to start truCX. And we built a platform that was literally designed around the lens of we are going to help buyers of technology and buyers of data that they want to get information they want to gather through a process that's accelerated so that they can get the results very, very, very fast. So it's speeding it up for salespeople. It's giving us a better opportunity to get deals done and deals closed on both sides, both for the consulting community as well as for customers. And so it's used by a lot of consultants today, Bernard. I have a bunch of white label partners that are using the platform and have been on the platform for over a year. We're learning all about the ways in which customers want to use it, in which consultants want to use it. And we just continue to keep tweaking it because there are people that believe that this is absolutely the newest approach and this is the newest way of getting things done. And they do feel like with the evolution of AI, there is an opportunity for AI to compete with them if, in fact, they're not bringing new, faster, speedier, scalable ways of getting certain things done in the consulting process.
It's very insightful, and you may be coming up with a value proposition that is very timely because we hear a lot about the big consulting firms suffering from the advent of AI and seeing a lot of revenue disappearing because A lot of companies can basically do their own discovery, leveraging their own AI solution of choice. So, do you consider the big consulting firms to be your competitors in this space, or are they now your customers and partners by adopting truCX as their discovery platform?
They definitely could be a partner if, in fact, they believe that this is the type of model they want to move towards. Speed is the new currency. So, if we can quickly help people get through a process, doesn't mean we have to charge a ton less, but we can't charge necessarily what we traditionally charge to put a bunch of bodies at a problem. There has to be a combination in the future of human effort and automation effort. We're leveraging the automation right now to get through a mundane process that the customer doesn't ever want to really go through and the consultant really doesn't want to go through because it's time based and it's tedious. So, all we're doing is shrinking that up, building a lot of automation around the topics and the categories so you can literally discover across anything that you're doing. An ERP migration, a CRM adoption. We want to move off of marketing automation platform and go to something else. We're moving off of our contact center, our workforce manager. We're looking for a new BPO. It's limitless on what you can do on the platform. And then it will start to help you understand what your requirements are the more people that go through it. Because then we're using the AI to actually build summaries around what's happening and what came back. It's no longer me sitting in a Word doc or an Excel doc and then building out a PowerPoint. Those days are definitely going to go by the wayside in the years to come.
Would truCX typically be used by a company on the front end of a fuzzy problem when they know they have a problem that they need to address? They would use truCX to really define that problem much faster through a faster discovery process to be able to come up with clear requirements in weeks versus months so that they can accurately source the technology that would support those requirements a lot faster as well. Would that be a good description of the time-based value proposition of truCX?
Perfect description. One of the things we're working on now as part of a new development effort is we're creating connections to all types of APIs through our platform. So think about Salesforce and Slack and Freshdesk and Genesis and Five9 and Zoom and you name it. If you could connect your APIs into our platform and we can identify all of the pain points and the friction points that are going on inside the organization, then recommend which discovery you should put your people through or your departments through. Doesn't that become of immense value to any organization to know that we've got a churn issue going on right now, but it's not necessarily because customers are unhappy, it's because of something else that's going on inside the organization. They love our products and service, but it's taking us too long to get back to them when they call in. So there's tickets that are going on that go from a level one, they don't get answered in a time-based manner. And so you're out of SLA. And then we look at the email queue and it's like they're also piling up on emails and their web chats are taking too long to answer. If we can correlate that data, once you connect your platforms into ours, isn't that a great place to start to understand discovery? So this is not just about, hey, I have one project going on right now. I'd like to use the platform, generate requirements, and then I'm good. I don't need anything else. We're now creating it based on customer feedback, based on consulting feedback from our consultants. Customers are like, hey, what if we could connect some of our systems into the platform and it could identify where we should go deeper and wider around discovery and start vetting those areas? That's the future of where we're headed, and in months, not in years. And so that is going to open up the door to a ton of opportunity to really get straight on what matters most to the business when it matters most to the business in real time.
Well said. As you pointed out, speed is the new currency. People buy compression of time and they pay a lot of money the more time gets compressed. The general rule of thumb is that if a project does not get done in 90 days, you're losing the thread. 90 days seems to be a time span where you can control the sponsors, the executives, the team that's in charge of the project and working on the project. If you go past 90 days, things start happening. People lose focus. Executives change positions. New priorities emerge. And all of a sudden, as you pointed out in the experience you had with the 9-month project, you never see the end of it because you're losing traction on the importance of the project. So anything that can get done within 90 days, you have control of the timeline. If it takes more than that, you're losing control of the outcome. Have you seen the same in your experience?
We have. The biggest thing is budget shifts, and that's scary for everybody. It's not just scary for the seller. It's scary for the buyer because they just lost the window of opportunity and the momentum inside the business to make the change. And I've talked to many CIO, VPs of IT, VP of contact center, CXOs, where they're like, it just took too long and I lost my opportunity to have an impact in the business to get this project funded. The CFO shifted the budget to somebody else that can move faster and something that was more immediate. And that's why when I think about when I was writing the book, I kept thinking about what problem are we solving really? And it's all about speed and acceleration. It's all about accelerating it so we don't miss the windows, we don't lose momentum, we don't lose the budgets. This is so key to holistic selling. If you think about a topic like this, because you're peeling back the onion on what matters most to the seller and the buyer. This platform is good for both sides. There's no one bias to either side because you're all trying to get through something as fast as possible. But by increasing speed and acceleration, what you absolutely cannot do is you cannot leave the in depth requirements and the needs on the side of the road. And so we also accomplish that through the platform. We get more requirements that come out of this platform, Bernard. People that are using our platform are shifting another 2 to 3x revenue out of a customer from the onset than a consultant that goes in at it alone doing it manually. And people say, well, how do you know that? And I say, because we're profiling the size of the deals that are being won where the customers on the platform and generating requirements because the requirements are going so much deeper, faster than a human can go over the course of time. And so when they go back to the business and say, hey, here's our requirements, those requirements are there's an abundance of requirements. So sometimes you might have to peel some things back because of budget, because they can't afford to do it. But we're capturing so many needs that it makes sense to the ultimate deciders that are seeing the final product. They're saying, this makes sense. Maybe we should spend a little more right now to get this done. Why wait another 6 months to a year? Our organization is telling us that this is a problem. And if we fix it, does that have an impact on revenue? Does that have an impact on churn? And you have to tie it back to those things because that's what the business ultimately is trying to figure out from an ROI or TCO is, can we make a case for spending more now? And we're proving out that we actually are helping companies make the case and build their consensus to go back in so that they can confidently make decisions. And that to me is one of the most satisfying things you can have as an owner, because that is the problem at hand that we were trying to solve when we went at this and first started to build out the concepts and the wireframes of what this product would look like.
Let's build on the notion of business outcomes. Could you give me a couple of examples of clear business outcomes that some of your customers have achieved through the use of truCX as their platform?
Absolutely. We have a really large healthcare BPO down in Texas that went through this process. First company to go through the process. We had 25 people in the organization, including the head of people, head of human resources, along with the head of IT, the head of operations, and then the head of digital services, the person running some of their own AI that they were building out. They were building some of their own AI tools for their agents because they were BPO, and agents had too many screens open during the day and it was burning them out. It's creating frustration to the agent. But one of the things that we found out through this project by bringing all these departments together, and by the way, we did it 1 week, is that the absolute number one requirement for the business was to migrate to a very rich API based platform. It wasn't about contact center and routing calls and the IVR and how customers get in upfront. They were doing all of that just like most people are doing it today. And yeah, there could be some frustration based on the age of your systems and platforms, but that wasn't really the main driver. The main driver was they needed to break free from being held captive on the platform they were on in order to get to a rich API platform so that they could continue to innovate and develop the things they wanted to do inside their agent interface. And they could subscribe to services on the platform through the API calling it, And that was something that glaringly became the number one factor in how they made a decision, along with looking at other AI use cases that came out of it. Again, getting everybody on the same page and driving everybody through the same process over the course of a week, we were able to very quickly start to see what bubbled up as like the top 5 things. And then we got laser focused on just the top 5 areas that really was where the deal was decided, because that was what mattered most to them. And it was really hindering them based on the longevity of the platform that they had in place to that point. So again, eyes wide open. We created the clarity, got the team through, and it ended up in a really, really large multi-million dollar deal. And they felt very good about it. And they got it implemented in less time because they were able to go to the successful supplier that won the bid process. They were able to share a lot of these insights and a lot of what they needed with them. So it really helped to build out the statement of work that ultimately led to the final statement of work that they would sign off on, where they were getting a lot of what they wanted, less about what someone was trying to sell and deliver to them, more about created a wrapper around really what the customers' needs were and what they wanted, what was most important to them.
That was a great example. You mentioned AI a couple of times already. What do you see as the impact of AI on SaaS B2B companies? And personally, how are you leveraging AI in your business?
Yeah, so AI is fundamentally changing sales by automating research, automating personalization and outreach and the administrative work. Every top seller today can create their own agent assistant, their AI assistant that can help them do things like create LinkedIn posts and create content for emails and help them identify who the top 20 targets should be for them based on all of the different components. Take something out of a LinkedIn Sales Navigator, dump it into your ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using, and ask it very specifically with prompts. Who are the top 5 decision makers at this company for buying technology? What is their phone number? What is their name? What is their email? That is such a useful way for salespeople to leverage AI. And if you're not doing it, you're already behind the 8 ball. And even as a top seller not doing it, you will eventually fall into the B category to the top 8 players because they're doing it. The other thing is sales teams can spend less time gathering information and more time building relationships. So think about, if I'm using AI to my advantage to automate the mundane stuff and do all the work and do all the research and things like that and help me with my outreach and identify my perfect profile prospects. We call it a PPP. That's something we use across multiple companies that I'm involved with. We call it PPP. It's a perfect profile prospect. Instead of going after 100, we're going after 20. We're going after them deep and wide. So get back to use the automation and get back to the in-person events. Get back to all of the local meetups. Get out and shake hands, because AI can't go out and shake hands. AI is not attending an event. AI is not gathering business cards and getting people's names. So you have to be able to do it. That's where the gold is. If it gives you more time to do that stuff, and then in addition to that, you're also using the back end of how you've automated your personal assistant, which I've done it with ChatGPT. Build any personal assistant you want. I've connected it with LinkedIn. I've connected it with other tools just because I wanted to explore, how can I use this as a secret advantage or a weapon to stop doing stuff I don't want to do? So that's another major competitive advantage. AI also is helping identify buying signals and intents, opportunities, things like that. So it gives a salesperson scale. That's the number one thing. AI will not eliminate the salesperson, in my opinion. It will absolutely not be able to place sellers. Now, will it be able to replace a D and a C player at an organization? Maybe, but it will replace the A and the Bs? Absolutely not. In my opinion, I don't see how that's possible. Again, because of the physical connection that we have as human beings.
I totally agree. AI is there to augment and support the sales team, not replace them. Using AI to support your process of finding the perfect profile prospect, identifying buying intent and the like, getting ready for a meeting in minutes versus hours will help you spend more time building relationships and spending time with customers for sure. I think that's very well said. Well, anything else in terms of AI that you've seen influencing the way that your business is successful?
Yeah, the way we're using it, truCX, is to help organizations analyze the results of these journeys that they go through. It's identifying sentiment, it's identifying patterns, it's summarizing all of the findings, and that's ultimately leading to the output that the customers are getting. So, one of the cool things it does is we've created an area where the AI will make suggestions on how to improve in those areas in case you don't get funding to do the project. So let's just say you do not get funding this year, it's still going to make recommendations around where to improve overall based on the summary of the journeys and the scoring. And I thought that was really unique of us to do that because we can't assume that somebody's going to get the go ahead to necessarily do a project. But on the flip side, if they do get the go ahead, it's also creating an area where it says, hey, here's the folks that you might want to look at based on doing some research. Maybe start out looking at this company, this company, this company, and this company, because it's starting to analyze here's the ones that we feel you should look at first versus some of the others. And of course, you can do whatever you want with the report because it's your report. So if you're already on one of those platforms and you don't want to look at that platform and bring that incumbent into the process, don't do it. But it's going to make some recommendations. The whole idea is, again, we're trying to help them accelerate and speed up the process to eliminate them having to do a lot of the mundane stuff like research and things like that.
Well understood. I think a key theme of this conversation today, Rich, is the notion of removing complexity, improving clarity, removing friction, eliminating the misalignment. If you can do all of those things, if you can simplify your business process, if you can create clarity, if you can eliminate friction, if you can create cross-functional alignment, you create more speed in the business, and inevitably creating more speed in the business will allow you to achieve better results in a fraction of the time that otherwise would have been needed. It's also creating an environment where you can serve customers and prospects a lot better, and where your own team members enjoy the work that they're doing a lot better because, as you pointed out, you free up a lot of internal time and allow them to spend more time with customers to really do what they do best and deliver better results for themselves and the company. So in summary, there's really a lot that you talked about: relying on your own intelligence, simplifying the process, including your people, tapping into internal knowledge, avoiding siloed decisions, discovering the requirements faster, speed up the process of discovery so that you can create better alignment on the outcome and the requirements that come out of that discovery process. And in so doing, helping both the buyers and the sellers achieve a better outcome within a time limit that allows you not to lose momentum on the project, because we know that time is of the essence. And if you don't execute with enough velocity, you're going to lose the plot over time and you're going to lose momentum in that project. So I think those key themes are very similar to the holistic selling themes of removing complexity, creating alignment, creating clarity, making sure that the entire organization is empowering the frontline team members to do what they do best, which is creating relationships with customers, delighting customers at every touch point. So really appreciate your perspective on all of this today, Rich. Now, back to you for a call to action for the audience. What would you like the audience to take away from this conversation today?
I'd say two things is especially because of the topic holistic selling. AI won't replace great salespeople, but great salespeople using AI the right way will absolutely outperform those who don't. The second thing I would say is my challenge to the audience is simple. Before looking outside your organization for answers, ask yourself whether the intelligence you're seeking is already within. More often than not, it is.
Very well said. And for everyone on the podcast, I highly recommend that you pick up a copy of the Intelligence Within book by Rich Tarity to really get to the bottom of the insights that Rich has brought together in that book. And since then, obviously, you've leveraged those lessons to create a company, a platform to help companies succeed at scale. So very well done. I really enjoyed the conversation, Rich, and look forward to a continuous relationship with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernard. I appreciate you having me on as a guest today.